Hello, I am Chitra, faculty in chemistry at Silver Hills Public School, Kozhikode. Welcome back to my second video on metals and non-metals, the third chapter in the NCERT science textbook for class 10. If you remember, in the last class we discussed mainly on the physical properties of metals and non-metals. We studied that metals are hard, strong, dense solids with very high melting and boiling point. They are malleable, ductile, sonorous and lustrous, as well as very good conductors of heat and electricity. Whereas non-metals, they show just the opposite of these properties. Non-metals are very soft and brittle substances which exist in all the three states. They have very low melting and boiling point. They are non-malleable, non-ductile, non-lustrous and non-sonorous. And of course, very poor conductors of heat and electricity, with few exceptions. We also studied about metalloids, which is a small group of elements which lies between the metals and non-metals. They show properties intermediate to that of metals and non-metals. This much we studied in the last class. Now, today our main learning objectives are to explain the chemical properties of metals and non-metals, to distinguish between metal and non-metal oxides, and also to predict the feasibility of a reaction or the products of a reaction between metals and other chemicals. So, this is what we are going to discuss today. But before we start off, shall I ask you a small question? What are chemical reactions? What do you mean by a chemical reaction? Yes, chemical reactions are processes in which the existing substance called reactants, they undergo irreversible permanent changes to form new substances called products. But when we say that, we also have studied that in a chemical reaction, all chemical reactions, they satisfy or they obey the law of conservation of mass. It states that in any chemical reaction, the total mass remains conserved. That means the number and kind of atoms of the reactants as well as the products remains the same. If it is so, then why are changes occurring in a chemical reaction? What happens in a chemical reaction? How and why a chemical reaction occurs? I think to get an answer to this, we should recollect the atom structure that we have studied in class 9. See, this is the Bose atom model. Every atom, as per Niels Bohr, has a structure like this with a dense central nucleus inside which the protons and neutrons are there and electrons revolving around it in specific orbits. Now, when we say about a chemical reaction, we already said that in a chemical reaction, the total mass is conserved, but reactants are getting converted into products. So, what is happening? There just a rearrangement of atoms is taking place. The existing atoms, the existing bonds in these atoms and molecules, those bonds are broken and new bonds are formed. So, breaking of the existing bonds, formation of new bonds. In a nutshell, we can say a rearrangement of atoms takes place in chemical reaction. But why does this happen? The simple reason for that is the atom structure itself. See, we already told there are electrons in the orbits. The whole atom is not participating in a chemical reaction. only the electrons. That too, the electrons in the outermost shell. The outermost shell is called the valence shell, and the electrons in the outermost shell are called valence electrons. So, in a chemical reaction, only the valence shell electrons are participating. Either atoms are losing electrons, or atoms are gaining electrons, or sometimes they even are sharing electrons between each other. So, why do atoms undergo a transaction of electrons? Why do they gain or lose or share electrons? That is just to attain octet, just to satisfy the octet rule. So, the basic fundamental reason for why atoms undergo chemical reaction is just in an urge to attain stability. How can they attain stability? By having 8 electrons in their outermost shell. All the noble gases have 8 electrons, and that is why they are very noble. They do not undergo any chemical reaction. What is it? All substances are made up of atoms. Now, all atoms are having a dense nucleus and negatively charged electrons revolving around it. In any chemical reaction, only what happens? Either electrons are lost, or electrons are gained, or electrons are being shared between the constituent atoms. Now, why do these atoms do such a transaction? That is just to attain the octet configuration. Octet configuration means it is a noble gas configuration. That means all atoms, noble gases, atoms have 8 electrons in their outermost shell. So, an atom becomes stable with 8 electrons in its outermost shell. So, when we understand that much, now I think it is much more easier for you to understand the chemical reactions of metals and non-metals. When we talk about metals, we say that metals are electropositive. What do you mean by electropositivity? The tendency of an atom to lose electrons and become positively charged ions. Why do metals do this? That is because, you see, this is the periodic table which we discussed in the last class. Here you see all the metals that you see on the left hand side. Take for example sodium. Sodium has an atomic number 11. That means it has an electronic configuration 2, 8, 1. Sodium has 1 valence electron, and if it is losing that 1 electron, it will gain neon's configuration. It will be having 8 electrons in its outermost shell. Same way, coming to magnesium, calcium, they all have 2 valence electrons. If they lose these 2 electrons, again they are getting back to neon's stable octet configuration. When we come down to aluminum, you can see aluminum has 3 valence electrons. Though it is very difficult for aluminum to lose all the 3 electrons, aluminum will prefer for it under favorable condition. Why? Just to attain the neon-like configuration. So, see what is happening? See, this is a sodium atom as I mentioned. Sodium, this is the nucleus, 2 electrons in the first shell, 8 electrons in the second shell, just 1 electron in the third shell. On losing this 1 electron, what will happen to sodium? It will become Na plus ion, and it is becoming stable. Similarly, calcium, on losing 2 electrons, it becomes Ca2 plus ion. Aluminum, on losing 3 electrons, become Al3 plus ion. This is the case with all metals. That is why metals are said to be electropositive. And all the reactions of metals is because of this electropositive nature. But when we say that, say metals are electropositive, all metals are electropositive, does it mean that they all are showing the same type of chemical reactivity? No. These atoms, these metals are just like you people sitting in the class. Though all of you are given the same resources, though all of you have similar circumstances, you are given everything the same, you share similar properties, that is why you all are here in this class, no? But at the same time, each one of you are different. Just like you people, these metal atoms are also different. See, you can compare. Now sodium has just one electron to lose to get the octet configuration. At the same time, calcium will have to lose 2 electrons, aluminum will have to lose 3 electrons. So who will be more reactive? Obviously, sodium, no? So because of this, see, it is the tendency to lose electrons. You can say the readiness to lose electrons that determines the reactivity of metal atoms. Just now I said that sodium is much more reactive than calcium or magnesium. They are much more reactive than aluminum. So all the reactions of metals, we can predict like this based on their reactivity. But for that, it is very essential for us to know their reactivity. And this work the scientists have made easy for us by designing a reactivity series. More than 60 metals are known to us. All these metals are arranged in a decreasing order of their reactivity in a series, and that series is what is called the reactivity series. We have a miniature version of this reactivity series being shown here. On this reactivity series, you can see on the top the most reactive metals. Potassium and sodium are the most reactive metals. Reason, just now I explained, they have just one electron to be lost. After potassium and sodium, the most reactive elements, we have calcium, magnesium and aluminum. These three are called highly reactive metals because they are representative elements. They also have 2 or 3 electrons which they are ready to lose for the sake of getting stability. So calcium, magnesium and aluminum are called highly reactive metals. Then we have zinc, iron, nickel, tin and lead. After this highly reactive metals, we are having zinc, iron, nickel, tin and lead. They are called moderately reactive metals. After that, after the moderately reactive metals, in the reactivity series, we see the less reactive copper, mercury. They are called less reactive metals, followed by the least reactive metals, silver, gold and platinum. So once again, repeating the order, the most reactive metals, potassium, sodium. Highly reactive metals, calcium, magnesium, aluminum. Moderately reactive metals, zinc, iron, nickel, tin and lead. After this lead in the reactivity series, you can see hydrogen. Hydrogen? How come hydrogen being a non-metal in the reactivity series of metals? Simple reason. Hydrogen is also electropositive. So these metals are competing with hydrogen in their electropositivity. So these metals which lie above hydrogen, which all are those metals? The most reactive, the highly reactive and the moderately reactive metals. They displace hydrogen from dilute acids. We will see that reaction shortly. For the time being, simply understand the reason for why you see hydrogen in the reactivity series of metals is only those metals above hydrogen in the reactivity series can displace hydrogen from dilute acid. Below hydrogen we have the less reactive metals. Which are they? Copper, mercury. And after that we have silver, gold and platinum. Silver, gold and platinum are called noble metals, the most stable metals. They don't undergo any sort of reaction. That's why they are called noble metals, silver, gold and platinum. Now, how will you remember this reactivity series? Here I have a small mnemonics. Have you heard of mnemonics? Mnemonics means it's an easy way of remembering very complicated ideas, which is very difficult for you to recollect. Such things you can remember in a very easy manner. So, see here the mnemonics for remembering reactivity series. Can you see it here? Please send Charlies, monkeys and zebras in lead cages securely guarded. Once again, please send Charlies, monkeys and zebras in lead cages securely guarded, where the first letter of each word represent an element, a metal. Here P stands for potassium, S stands for sodium. You can see potassium and sodium here. C stands for calcium, M stands for magnesium, A stands for aluminium, Z stands for zinc, I stands for iron, L stands for lead, C stands for copper, S stands for silver and G stands for gold. Did you understand that? So, what is it? Once again, remember the order: potassium, sodium, calcium, magnesium, aluminium. What is potassium and sodium? They are the most reactive metals. Then we have calcium, magnesium, aluminium, highly reactive metals, followed by zinc, iron, nickel, tin and lead. They are the moderately reactive metals. And after that we have hydrogen. You can see here hydrogen, it is a non-metal, but remember, only the metals above hydrogen can displace hydrogen from dilute acids. Only they are more electropositive than hydrogen. Followed by the less reactive metals, copper, mercury. And finally, we have the least reactive noble metals, silver, gold and platinum. After we discuss about the reactivity series, now I think it will be very easy for you to understand the chemical properties of metals. Now we are moving on to the chemical properties. The first property, reaction with oxygen. Metals, they are highly reactive towards oxygen. Many of them react readily with oxygen. These metals are exposed to the surroundings, to the atmosphere, and we have plenty of oxygen in the air. So, these metals readily combine with the oxygen of the air, forming the corresponding metal oxide. Sodium plus oxygen giving sodium oxide. Potassium plus oxygen giving potassium oxide. Now, sodium and potassium, they are the most reactive metals. So, they undergo an explosive reaction with oxygen. When they are kept in the open, they react explosively, forming the corresponding sodium oxide and potassium oxide. So, to prevent this reaction, they are never stored in the open. They always are stored in kerosene. Okay? So, the two metals stored in kerosene are sodium and potassium. What is the reason? Because they are most reactive, they undergo explosive reaction with oxygen, moisture, etc. So, to prevent this reaction, they are stored in kerosene. Coming to the moderately reactive metals, which are highly reactive metals, which all are they? Calcium, magnesium, aluminium. Calcium reacts with oxygen forming calcium oxide. Magnesium reacts with oxygen forming magnesium oxide. Aluminium will be forming aluminium oxide. Now, this reaction of magnesium oxide, I will show you right now. Here, I have a few metal samples for you. See, This is sodium. About sodium I have already told you that sodium is a most reactive metal, and being a most reactive metal, it reacts explosively with oxygen. So always it is stored in kerosene. You can see that these pieces, this is a small piece of sodium. Sodium looks like rubber, isn't it? A white luster it is having. So it is kept immersed in kerosene because it is the most reactive metal. Now, after sodium, this is magnesium. Usually, magnesium is available in the form of ribbon. Magnesium is a highly reactive metal. So, magnesium ribbon. Here, I have taken aluminum. Aluminum is again a very highly reactive metal. This is zinc. You can see pieces of zinc. Zinc again is a moderately reactive metal. This is iron filings, powdered iron, iron in the powder form. Okay. And here we have copper, turnings of copper. Copper again is a very less reactive metal. Now all these are the metal samples which I have for you: sodium, magnesium, aluminum, zinc, iron and copper. Here I have taken, you can see this yellow colored powder, this is nothing but sulfur. Sulfur is a non-metal, solid non-metal, and here I have a small amount of phosphorus for you, reddish brown in color, phosphorus. So these two are the metal non-metal samples, sulfur and phosphorus, and these are the metals. Now obviously they are different in their physical properties. These all are dense solids, this is powder like, all those properties we have already discussed. Now here I am going to show you this reaction. As I told you, I can't show you sodium because sodium reacts explosively. So here I have taken a piece of magnesium. Now magnesium, about metals we have already studied. Metals are lustrous. But this magnesium doesn't appear to be so lustrous. It appears to be dull, isn't it? Why is it so? That is because when we store it, when we keep it just like this magnesium reacts slowly with the oxygen of the air, forming an oxide coating on its surface. The reaction taking place is magnesium slowly combining with oxygen of the air to form magnesium oxide. And this magnesium oxide coating protects this metal from further reaction. It makes this metal passive now. So if I have to burn magnesium, what I have to do is, I have to take a sandpaper and I have to scrub this. So what I am doing? I am scrubbing this magnesium with sandpaper. Now this one question you can see in all the CBSE board exam papers. Why is magnesium ribbon rubbed with sandpaper before burning? What is the reason? You have to say the main points. Magnesium is a highly reactive metal. It slowly reacts with the oxygen of the air, forming an oxide coating which prevents it from further reaction. So what we have to do? We have to scrub it with sandpaper and remove the oxide coating. Now you see it has become lustrous once again, and here on the sandpaper you can see that greyish white deposit of magnesium oxide. So I have taken the scrubbed magnesium ribbon. Here I have, this is what is called a spirit lamp. Spirit lamp is used in the laboratory for burning purpose. Now I am lighting the spirit lamp. Here you see magnesium burning with a dazzling white flame. What is the chemical reaction happening here? This magnesium, as you can see it here, magnesium is burning with oxygen, forming magnesium oxide. Here we get this white ash-like substance which is called magnesium oxide. So what is the chemical reaction happening here? Magnesium combining with oxygen to form magnesium oxide. The next metal reacting with oxygen, iron. You know, iron under normal conditions will not be reacting with oxygen as such. But when exposed to air in the presence of moisture, iron reacts with oxygen forming rust. What do you mean by rust? Rust is hydrated iron oxide. Okay, it has the formula Fe2O3XH2O. This X is a variable. It depends upon the atmospheric conditions. So, under normal conditions, iron in the presence of moisture reacts with oxygen forming rust, which is chemically hydrated iron oxide. So, now what you can see here is, as we are coming down, the reactivity is decreasing. You saw the sodium explosively reacting. That is why I did not show it to you. Potassium, sodium, explosive reaction. Calcium, magnesium, aluminum. When it comes to magnesium, you have to burn it to make it react with oxygen. Aluminum, see this aluminum, even if I am burning it here, it will not be reacting. It has to be taken to very high temperature for this aluminum to react, to burn with oxygen. But for magnesium as well as aluminum, that oxide coating which is slowly formed on their surface, that prevents these metals from further corrosion. Now, when we come down to moderately reactive metals, you can see that iron reacts with atmospheric oxygen in the presence of moisture only to form rust, hydrated iron oxide. Coming down to copper, you can see copper here. Now, this copper will not, under normal conditions, it will not be reacting with oxygen. But when heated to very high temperature, copper combines with oxygen forming copper oxide. Now, copper oxide has a black coating, it is black in color. So, copper burns at very high temperature, reacts with oxygen forming a black substance of copper oxide. So, what did we discuss till now? We said that metals are reactive towards oxygen. Again, the reactivity decreases as we come down the reactivity series. Anyway, when metals are reacting with oxygen, metal oxides are formed. Now, what is the nature of these metal oxides? We should know that, no? So, I will show you another one activity. Here I got magnesium oxide. Now, this magnesium oxide is taken in a test tube. It is transferred to a test tube and a small amount of water is added to it. Now, here you can see magnesium oxide. It is sparingly soluble in water, not completely soluble. So, I am using a glass rod. Using this glass rod, I am just stirring it thoroughly so that it forms a milky white solution. Now, what is this milky white solution? What is the chemical reaction happening here? Magnesium oxide is reacting with water to form magnesium hydroxide, which is a mild base. So, this magnesium oxide reacting with water to form magnesium hydroxide, which is basic in nature. Now, how will we prove that this is basic in nature? For that, we have to use an indicator. What is this indicator? This is red litmus. In the last chapter, we studied that bases turn red litmus blue. So, I am using this red litmus, just litmus solution. A few drops of it is added to this magnesium hydroxide. And you can see that red litmus turns blue, indicating that it is a mild base. So, metal oxides are generally basic in nature. Sodium oxide, sodium reacts with oxygen forming sodium oxide. Sodium oxide dissolves in water forming sodium hydroxide. Calcium oxide will form calcium hydroxide. Magnesium oxide will form magnesium hydroxide when dissolved in water. And these metal hydroxides are bases. So, we can say generally metal oxides are basic in nature. But here again we have one or two exceptions. See, some metal oxides. Which are they? Aluminium oxide and zinc oxide. Here again you have to remember that pattern. We are coming down the reactivity series. The oxides of highly reactive metals, most reactive metals were typical bases. But when we come down, aluminium oxide, zinc oxide, their reactivity is less, aluminium and zinc. So their oxides, they are called amphoteric oxides. Amphoteric oxides show both acidic as well as basic character. What do you mean by acidic character? Acidic character means that substance will be reacting with a base. See, aluminium oxide is amphoteric. That means it can act like a base. If it is acting like a base, it will be reacting with an acid. No, a basic substance will react with an acid, forming the corresponding salt and water. This reaction is called neutralization reaction. So here we can say aluminium oxide reacts with hydrochloric acid. It forms aluminium chloride and water. So that shows that it is showing basic property. At the same time, it shows acidic property also. How can we prove it? See, this aluminium oxide can react with sodium hydroxide. It's a strong base. So, aluminium oxide on reacting with sodium hydroxide is forming sodium aluminate. Sodium aluminate has the formula NaAlO2 plus H2O. So, aluminium oxide, since it shows both acidic as well as basic character, it is called an amphoteric oxide. Similarly, zinc. Zinc is also amphoteric. Zinc can react with hydrochloric acid. When it is reacting with hydrochloric acid, it is forming zinc chloride. And at the same time, zinc can react with sodium hydroxide also. On reacting with sodium hydroxide, it is forming sodium zincate. So, aluminium oxide and zinc oxide are called amphoteric oxides. Other than these, all other metal oxides are generally basic in nature. So, did you understand that first reaction, children? What was that reaction? Metals reacting with oxygen forming metal oxide. Highly reactive metals, most reactive metals, the explosive, highly vigorous reaction will be happening. As we come down, the reactivity decreases. About metal oxides are generally basic, but aluminium oxide and zinc oxide are amphoteric in nature. Okay, hope that is clear for you. Moving to the next reaction. Reaction of metals with water. For metals, again we can say the most reactive sodium, potassium, explosive reaction. That's why I told you earlier, not stored in the open like that. It is always stored in kerosene. When we come down, generally when a metal is reacting with water, the products formed are metal hydroxide plus hydrogen. When sodium is reacting with water, what is formed? Sodium hydroxide plus hydrogen. Now the hydrogen gas, and this is a highly exothermic reaction. Large amount of heat will be produced in that reaction. And because of that large amount of heat, the hydrogen catches fire, resulting in an explosion. That is why a piece of sodium put into water, you can see it running about the water surface with an explosion. Let us see that activity now. Now here I am showing you a very interesting activity on how sodium reacts with water. Now I am taking a very small piece of sodium. A very small piece of sodium is taken by using a spatula. This is what is called a spatula. So using a spatula, a very small piece of sodium is taken. You can see it is coated with kerosene. So just to remove that kerosene coating from its surface, it is being thoroughly rubbed with filter paper, and a small piece of it. About sodium we have studied, it is a soft metal which can easily be cut with a knife. Now I am taking a very small piece, see, it can easily be cut with a knife. So this small piece is taken, and here this is a trough in which I have taken water. Now you observe carefully what is happening here. A small piece of sodium put into water. You can see sodium running around the water surface. Some fumes are coming. You hear the fizzing sound. And you saw the small glimpses of fire being formed. That is because the sodium is reacting with water, forming sodium hydroxide and hydrogen. Now this hydrogen, this is a highly exothermic reaction. The hydrogen which is formed over here is catching fire, resulting in an explosion. Now the sodium hydroxide is again basic in nature. If we test it with litmus paper, you can see that its color changes to blue. Red litmus turns blue. So did you understand that much, children? So this is why, see, I just put a very small piece. Just imagine if the piece was big, it would have created an explosion over here. Okay. Now here again the reactivity decreases as we come down the series. When we talk about calcium, magnesium, they all react. Their reaction is not this much vigorous as it is in the case of sodium or potassium, but they react with water. When calcium and magnesium are reacting with water, they form the corresponding hydroxides. Calcium will form calcium hydroxide, magnesium will form magnesium hydroxide, plus of course hydrogen. But you know what will happen? We know that metals are very dense. So initially when you put a piece of calcium or magnesium into water, you can see it sinking down. After some time, you can see the metal coming to the surface and floating on the surface. Just now you saw with sodium also, it was not sinking down, it was floating. Just like that. Initially magnesium and calcium will sink, but later they will come and start floating. What is the reason? The reason is simple, the evolution of this hydrogen itself. The hydrogen which comes up, bubbles up, sticks on to the metal surface, thus making it light and float on the top. So this observation is very important. Calcium and magnesium can react with less vigorousness when compared to sodium and potassium, forming again the corresponding hydroxide plus hydrogen. But initially the metals will be at the bottom because metals are very dense. But as the reaction proceeds, you can see the metal slowly rising to the surface because of the hydrogen evolved in the reaction. As we further come down to aluminum, here there is a small change. Aluminum, when it is red hot at very high temperature, it can react with water, steam, in the gas form, forming aluminum oxide, not hydroxide. This point is to be noted. Aluminum reacts with water at very high temperature to form aluminum oxide plus hydrogen gas again released. Same is the case with iron. Iron also reacts with water. When iron is in the red hot condition with superheated steam, iron reacts forming ferroferric oxide. Now what is this ferroferric oxide? It has a formula Fe3O4, which is a combination of FeO and Fe2O3. So iron, the reaction of iron, you have to remember, it reacts with water at very high temperature forming ferroferric oxide, that is Fe3O4. So that's all about the reaction of metals with water. Metals are reacting, only highly reactive metals, less reactive metals and all will not react with water at all. Sodium, explosive reaction, sodium, potassium. Calcium, magnesium, they will be reacting, but vigorousness of the reaction will be less. But they all will be forming hydroxide, but aluminum and iron will be forming oxides. That is the difference. So, that was about the second reaction, reaction with water. Now, the third reaction, reaction of metals with dilute acid. Dilute acid means hydrochloric acid, sulfuric acid. We have already discussed metals reacting with dilute acids producing the metal salt and hydrogen gas. You can observe brisk effervescence of hydrogen gas, bubbling up hydrogen gas. So, metals above hydrogen in the reactivity series can displace hydrogen from dilute acids. This is a type of displacement reaction. Remember, only metals above hydrogen can do so, whereas metals lying below hydrogen cannot release hydrogen gas. Here again one point you have to remember. See what is happening? See the equation here. Zinc is reacting with hydrochloric acid forming zinc chloride plus hydrogen. Magnesium reacts with sulfuric acid forming magnesium sulfate plus hydrogen. But one thing remember, with nitric acid when metals are reacting, hydrogen gas is not released. That is an exception. When metals are reacting with dilute nitric acid, hydrogen gas is not released. Instead, water is released. What might be the reason? We have already studied that nitric acid is a very strong oxidizing agent. So, being a very strong oxidizing agent, it will oxidize the hydrogen formed in the reaction instantly to water. But in that process, what will happen to nitric acid? It will get reduced to any one oxide of nitrogen, like nitrogen monoxide, nitrogen dioxide, any one of this oxide will be formed. Let us see an example. See, zinc reacting with nitric acid. What are the products formed? Zinc nitrate plus nitrogen dioxide plus water. Zinc reacts with nitric acid. Had it been some other acid, it would have been only hydrogen. But here that hydrogen is oxidized to water by whom? By nitric acid. And what is happening to nitric acid? It is getting reduced to nitrogen dioxide. But here again, two exceptions are there. See these two metals, which are they? Magnesium and manganese. These two metals can react with very dilute nitric acid, producing hydrogen gas. Okay? So, about the reaction of metals with dilute acid, the point you have to remember is generally hydrogen gas is produced. But with nitric acid, not hydrogen, instead water. That is because it is an oxidizing agent. Here we have two exceptions, magnesium and manganese. Now the next important reaction of metals, metal-metal displacement reaction. A more reactive metal displacing a less reactive metal from its aqueous salt solution. What does it mean? A metal on the top of the reactivity series can displace a metal lying below it. Say for example, you know zinc is more reactive, copper is less reactive. So, when a few pieces of zinc are added to copper sulfate solution, what will happen? This zinc will displace copper out, forming zinc sulfate and copper. You know that copper sulfate has a blue color. Now, this is copper sulfate having blue color. To that copper sulfate, you are keeping a piece of zinc. Slowly you can see that the solution turns colorless. Why is it so? Because here zinc sulfate is formed and copper deposit, reddish brown deposit of copper you can see in the reaction. Another similar reaction, iron reacting with copper sulfate. Iron is more reactive, copper is less reactive. So, iron can displace copper out from copper sulfate, thus forming green colored iron sulfate and reddish brown deposit of copper. See, copper sulfate has a blue color. To that you are putting an iron nail. After some time, you can see that the solution becomes green. That shows the formation of iron sulfate. So, always a highly reactive metal can displace a less reactive metal from its aqueous salt solution. This is a type of displacement reaction. So, these were the 4 reactions of metals. Metals reacting with oxygen, metals reacting with water, metals reacting with dilute acids, and metals displacing each other. We said about so many metals, but do you know that there are a few metals? I have already said. Which all are they? Gold, silver and platinum. They are called noble metals. They do not react with any chemicals at all. They do not show any sort of reactivity under normal conditions. There is only one solution. Which is that solution? It is aqua regia, or even it is called royal water. So, aqua regia or royal water, it is a mixture of concentrated HNO3 and concentrated HCl. In the ratio, HCl is taken in the ratio 3 parts and HNO3 1 part. So, concentrated HCl and HNO3 in the ratio 3:1 makes aqua regia, which is the only solution in which these gold, a noble metal called gold, can react with. So, that is all about the chemical reactions of metals. Now, coming to non-metals. Generally speaking, non-metals do not show all these reactions, but non-metals can react with oxygen. When non-metals are reacting with oxygen, the corresponding oxides are formed, and it is different. These oxides, non-metallic oxides, they are different from metallic oxides. Non-metallic oxides are acidic in nature. So, metals, non-metals reacting with oxygen to form the corresponding oxide, which is acidic, means which can dissolve in water forming acids. Here you can see carbon reacts with carbon dioxide, oxygen forming carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide reacts with water forming carbonic acid. Similarly, sulfur reacts with oxygen forming sulfur dioxide, and sulfur dioxide reacts with water forming sulfurous acids. The same sulfur can react with oxygen if oxygen is present in plenty, in excess quantity, forming sulfur trioxide, and sulfur trioxide dissolves in water forming sulfuric acid. So, non-metallic oxides are acidic in nature, which makes them different from metallic oxides. And here the most reactive non-metal, which is that most reactive non-metal? Phosphorus. Phosphorus undergoes explosive reaction with oxygen, and hence phosphorus is always stored in water. Need not store it in kerosene, because phosphorus has no reaction with water. Phosphorus reacts explosively with oxygen. To prevent this reaction, it is stored in water. Now see, this is red phosphorus, which is used for making the tip of the matchstick. That shows, when you rub it, just that friction is enough to ignite it. It is combining with oxygen. Now, do you know about this phosphorus? One interesting fact. This phosphorus, it is called devil's element. Why is it called devil's element? Because this phosphorus glows in the dark and sometimes it explodes. So, because of its eerie glow and explosion. Moreover, when this phosphorus was discovered, it was the 13th element known at that time. Now we know it is the 15th element, but when it was discovered, it was considered to be the 13th element, and 13 is a bad omen. That number 13 is a bad omen. So because of all these reasons, what are the reasons? Because of its eerie glow, because of its ability to burst into flames automatically, and also since it was the 13th element, phosphorus is often known as devil's element. Coming to the end of the session, a few board exam questions, important questions. These questions you can see in most of the board exam question papers. See the first question, give reason for the following. A. Phosphorus is stored in water. What is the answer? Because phosphorus is the most reactive element. It reacts explosively with oxygen. So, to prevent that reaction, it is stored in water. Pickle and curd, the second one, B part, pickle and curd should not be stored in metal containers. Why? Pickles and curd, they are acidic substances. Metals are highly reactive towards acids. So, when these sour substances are stored in metal containers, the acids present in them can react with these metals, forming unedible, unwanted substances, which spoils that food as well as corrodes the vessel. So, to prevent this, it is never stored in metal containers. Instead, we prefer glass containers. Now, the third one, the C part of the question, sodium is stored in kerosene because sodium can react explosively with atmospheric oxygen as well as moisture. With that, we come to an end of today's session. Once again, summing up the important points we discussed today, metals are highly electropositive, means they have a tendency to lose electrons and form positive ions. Metals differ in their reactivity because of their difference in ability to lose electrons. So, all the metals are arranged in a series called the reactivity series. In a descending order, metals are arranged. Then we studied metals react with oxygen forming oxides, which are either amphoteric or generally basic in nature. Metals react with water forming metal hydroxides. Metals react with acids producing hydrogen gas. Metals can displace each other. And about non-metals, they are electronegative, and compared to metals, they are less reactive. Only one non-metal we know which reacts with oxygen is phosphorus. With that, we come to an end of today's session. Thank you.